Hey folks, I'm Jaxsun. We're going to talk about the state of Disc Priest going into 9.15. Now, Discs have actually received a fantastic 40% buff to their Divine Star going forward with the patch, which can really push off Purge the Wicked standard choice. So I'm interested to see how this plays out in terms of the tier 6 talents when we're talking about pushing higher end keys. So really interested to see how this is going to play out, and I'm excited. This is one of the few specs out there that's seen a rather substantial buff to their specific builds going into the new patch. So overall, like, Disc is going to continue to be one of the best performing healers out there. It's really a solid pick at any keystone level that you can think of. It really provides great party cooldowns in the Mythic Plus environment with pain suppression, power word barrier. It's really nice against heavy healing per second fights while still maintaining a high DPS. Overall, like, I know the competitiveness or attractiveness of Holy Paladins really seems to be dominating, but Disc is a class that can provide a lot of healing and damage. Its overall healing output in a dungeon format isn't the highest by any means, but it brings a lot of versatility and mobility. So overall, it's still a really fun class to play. You just have to manage your cooldowns respectively. Now into the changes with 9.15, we actually seen that Festering Transfusion, which is just a soulbind conduit from the Necro Lord Covenant, had its healing effect increased by 100%. Like we mentioned, Divine Star seen a significant buff there, around 40%. Halo, its specific talent, had its healing reduced by 20%, but now it deals with reduced healing beyond 6 targets. So similar to how Divine Star is set up, it's still a buff on a large number of targets. So it might be something that you want to think through if you're in more of a raid type content. But it's something that we need to think about in terms of how it fits. It's interesting now to see us explore more than simply Purge the Wicked on this tier. So I like what Blizz is doing from a spec design perspective. Contrition up on tier 5 had its healing increased by 15%, so still not enough to overtake Sins of the Many, but definitely more popular. And then Shadow Covenant on the same tier 5 list had its healing increased by 10%, mana costs reduced by 10%, and duration lowered to 7 seconds where it used to be 9. So still not OP by any means, but you can see what Blizz is trying to do. We're trying to move away from these single talents that we had on the row and just make some slight tweaking changes here. So that's exactly what we're used to seeing in an X 1.5 or 2.5 patch. So I'm excited to see where Disc is headed right now and what's going to come next for them. Jumping a little bit further now into some of the changes or talent builds that we're seeing. Tier 1, Twist of Fate, is seldomly picked in raids, but we want it to be our go-to. It buffs our non-atonement healing in dungeons. Absolutely worth it. So Twist of Faith is a good talent in Mythic Plus. Load up on it. Tier 2, you want to think about a couple different things. Angelic Feather is kind of the preferred option when you need additional movement speed. Alternatively, Mashoacism deserves an honorable mention. It's got a lot of play in higher Mythic Plus keys, and it prevents some one-shot kills. So it's an easy way to increase our survivability and reduce damage taken by 10% passively, which is just beauty. Tier 3, you've got a little bit more choice here. You've got Mindbender or Power Word Solace to consider. Mindbender definitely helps us generate a little bit more mana in terms of regeneration. Power Word Solstice, that's more damage, which, like, who doesn't love more damage? It's the way to go. Alright, next here, it really comes down to what you think your group needs. You can take advantage of mind control. I usually recommend Shining Force. It's really a utility that has a lot more benefit than we sometimes give it credit for. Provides a slow to the pack and a knockback, so a real nice compliment if you're looking to help out your tank and they're getting in trouble with any kind of kiting that's going on there. Alternatively, you can go with Psychic Voice, and that can make a pretty credible difference here, bringing our cooldown down to a 30-second turnover. That's pretty solid from kind of a fear type effect. Tier 5, we spoke about it. Shadow Covenant, with it getting to do a little bit more healing, starts to get a little bit more competitive, but Sins of the Many will be the remain kind of the default pick for the meantime. Tier 6, we mentioned it, Purge the Wicked is the default pick for both rating and Mythic Plus, but it sounds like what Blizz is trying to do is incentivize this. Sounds like there's going to be value in Divine Star, or even potentially Halo as well, if you want to go that way. What I like is that Blizz is making sure we're pressing a button. There's no passive approach here for us to take it easy. So I really like where that is. Really just kind of depends on how you enjoy spreading dots to the groups that are out there. Finally, Tier 7, Lenience is the way that I'd kind of recommend going for Mythic Plus. You're going to do a little bit less damage damage reduction for your tank. So your tank's going to eat a little bit more damage, but overall, from a Mythic Plus perspective, Lenience is probably our way to go, as opposed to Spirit Shell or Evangelism, which are two abilities that are entirely built around rating. So keep that in mind. From a Covenant perspective, Kyrian is the best Covenant right now. Within, they're just slightly behind, but with what we're seeing, I'm kind of just holding my breath a little bit to see if we're going to see a rather substantial rebalancing of Covenants for Priest, because it seems like this is one of the few classes where Blizz went back to trying to balance the specs as opposed to balancing the Covenants. So stay tuned on that one, because I expect we'll see more changes here, even with 9.15 joining us immediately. So in terms of legendaries, you've got a couple ways that you can go. Like, you can go with Clarity of Mind, and really that lines up okay if you're going to go with like a raid build around Spirit Shell or Evangelism. If you're really more focused on like what's going to be your go-to Mythic Plus legendary, go pick up the Spears of Harmony, assuming you did go with Kyrian, and basically it takes your Boon of the Ascended's cooldown and it reduces it by 2 seconds up to 60 seconds for each stack of Boon of the Ascended consumed by Ascended Eruption. So there's absolutely a pretty fun play here if you want to go get familiar with that Spires of Harmony legendary. So definitely go check that out, folks. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments about where Disc is, where it's headed, and if you're going to play much of it in 9.15. Thanks for checking out the video, and stay well. See ya.